Today's podcast can be a little bit difficult to listen to or watch. We recommend that you take care if you're listening or watching this video. If you need any additional support, we have included some links to help in the show notes. So please do reach out if you need some help. Hi and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will bring you a wealth of interesting people with fascinating ideas across the tech industries, the creative industries, and also uplifting stories of courage and hope. We all go through prickly situations in life. I believe that through courage, creativity, and curiosity, you can find inspiration to nurture your zest. That thing that gets you up and out of bed every morning, the thing that lifts you up and lights up your day. So join me in the studio and let's see who we have in the hot seat today. Hello and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. This is season 3 and I'm delighted to bring you even more exciting, wonderful people who are creative and curious. And today I have one of my favorite clients and friends that I've come to know through podcasting. So welcome to our set, Kayleigh Laverick from Mama Social.
Yay!
I feel like you could sleep here at the moment because you were here last night doing an amazing podcast.
Yeah.
It was really moving, that one. I was in tears actually listening to it while you were recording. You guys coped really well.
Yeah. I think when somebody's sharing something so raw and so real and that you can connect with, even though you haven't experienced that, but being a mother, everybody understands the thoughts that comes with that. So it was really brave and it was amazing to have that guest on, but then also to sandwich it between Lauren and I's madness of our weeks is what our listeners are used to. So thank you for having us. This is my comfort blanket. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting us on.
It's a pleasure to have you in the space, and I love that you've dressed for Nurture Your Zest. It's almost as if you could be our brand colours today. So it's amazing. So I know lots about you. I know lots about your podcast. I know lots about your mission. But I'm so excited for people listening or watching to hear more. So where to even start when it comes to Mrs. Laverick? Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Mrs. Laverick, I don't think anybody's officially called me that before in like a person-to-person setting. Because Mrs. Laverick is me mother-in-law.
How does that feel?
I feel old. Yeah. Mrs. Laverick. Who is Mrs. Laverick?
Well, let's ditch the Mrs. Laverick. Who's Kayleigh?
Kayleigh is a mix of an assortment of anything and everything. It's a pick and mix of woman, proud woman, mother, wife, business owner, and a woman who is so connected to herself that she's grown to this woman I'm really proud of. She's also got a mix of a spicy brain, and that I'm so proud of as well. But yeah, she's a fun human to be around, but also an overwhelming human if you were speaking to the girls in the office or my husband. But I think a free spirit is one, and somebody once called me aggressively ambitious.
Oh, I love that.
But I didn't take it as a negative. They were mean it in a negative, but I was like, if I was a man, would this be a negative?
It would be such a compliment.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
So fighting a good fight to bring back some autonomy in motherhood and really trying to put ourselves first and changing the landscape of parenthood one walk at a time.
I love that. And I love that you talk about one walk at a time because let's talk about Mama Social a little bit. You do a lot of walking, but you also do a lot of planning and a lot of chatting, podcasting, a lot of relationship building. But once upon a time, you went for a walk. So if you're comfortable sharing, tell me about Mama Social and how you started walking.
Yeah. Mama Social is a beast in itself, a beast of positivity, of connection, of community. And it's one of the proudest things I've ever done. I'll take you back to the OG story, because I think to know what Mama Social is, you need to understand the origins of it. And it was never a business. It was a way for me to combat my isolation and loneliness. So second time mum to little baby Eva, I think she was about 5 months old. I had a near-death experience with the delivery. And with Freddie, our first, it was plain sailing. It was incredible. Mother felt like this is what mother is, you know, like birthed out in 4 hours, the picture of what you think delivery is. Think of Eva's as the complete opposite and just horrendous. But 5 months later, I still didn't feel connected to anything. And I went out on a walk. I actually came back from a baby yoga class. And I was like, oh my God, like none of these sessions are filling me up. It was just, everything is about baby, which it should be. Of course it should be, because we love them little humans more than life itself. But also, where's my connection? Where's my support? All these groups all had their own little cliques within the groups that you couldn't get in, or me being a little bit forward, I'd try and join in with a conversation, and sometimes you were looked at like you had 3 eyes. So went for a walk, and this time, like we all we do as mothers is walk on maternity leave, but this time I did not feel in my body. It was like I was in a dream and I was floating about, and I just found myself in a real opportunity to take my own life. And that's said with real conviction of, there's been a lot of therapy, guys, so I've been able to talk about this without sobbing. But you know, when people kill themselves and the family is like, how on earth, why, how didn't we know, all of these questions, I know what it's like to be not connected. You don't even physically feel like you anymore. So I was walking back and forth across this bridge in this forest that we live out the back of, and it's on a ravine. And on our socials, we've gone back to the bridge, and it's a big drop. And luckily, I didn't have Eva's pram, because I was only walking back and forth on that. I knew what I was going to do, but I had to find somewhere to put Eva so that she could be found. Because even when you're not physically there, Mother Bear's still raging. So I didn't think we'd get to crying so bloody early. So I couldn't put her anywhere. She was attached to us. She was in a sling. And I was like, oh, well, I can't lie her on this bush because something might happen to her. And I don't want anything to happen to her. I just don't want this existence. So I just went back home, autopilot, back home, walked through the door, and it was as if I'd bounced back into myself of this, what the hell have you just nearly done? Like, how, why, all the questions that your family would have had if you were successful at it. Everything came over, the guilt, the shame. I was leaving me 3-year-old at the time, my husband, my family. I had all these things to live for. So from that moment, I swore, well, I just knew I wasn't okay to walk alone. So that night, I obviously spoke to my husband, and I was mortified. The shame that comes with postnatal depression and PTSD. And you don't want people to think that you don't love your kids, because it's not about the kids, it's about you. So I was like, I don't want to tell anybody. Dale said, right, we'll get a therapist. NHS waiting list for mental health is 18 months. It's mental. So luckily we could afford to get a private therapist, and we just shamefully did it ourselves. And now looking back, I shouldn't have, but that was how I needed to process. But that night I went on Facebook, because I didn't have any other social media at the time, and I put, if anybody's finding parenting rubbish, I'm going for a walk at this time, at this location. If anybody wants to come walk, we'll grab a coffee and we'll walk. Dale had said to my husband, what are you going to do if nobody turns up? I was like, still walk. Like, because it had been shared so many times. Turned up the next day and 9 mums were stood.
Wow.
And I didn't know them. And it was I had a cry. But it was a real acknowledgement of it's no longer a need for me to heal. It was a community need to heal. We'd just come out of COVID, all of that craziness. But motherhood is so isolating, and we don't talk about that part enough because your identity completely changes. So them 9 mums, the OGs I like to call them, most of them didn't know. I think I've told 1 or 2 of them. They'll obviously, because they're a part of the community, they'll know now. But at the time, it was nobody's story to tell but mine at the right time. And they saved me so many more times, because there was many other times that feeling would erupt again. But it was that jump on the WhatsApp. How's everybody doing? The mask of like, I need connection. Who's coming for a walk? So within, I think that first year, it was just us, just growing. I went back to work and there was a pull of people saying, oh, well, can I not lead a walk? Can I not do it? And it organically grew into this movement. And now, since January 2023, I left work. I said to my husband, God knows how I'm going to make money, but I just know I need to do this. And this is pulling me. My gut is telling me. And he was like, go on, crack on. My little pittance of a teacher's wage wasn't really cutting the mustard anyway. So, yeah, in the 2 years, 18 months, whatever we've been going, 2 years, January 2025, we've now got over 17,000 members, over 60 parent leads that are leading walks every day throughout the country, from Cornwall to Scotland over to Manchester, like everywhere, and we're not even touching the sides. And I'm so excited to be able to facilitate the growth of a community that I'll never be able to meet all them people, but that's not my job. My job is to make sure that nobody is isolated and alone. And the business model, which I think we'll get into, but it comes at no price to them.
This is something that blows me away. So as a business owner myself, you're a business owner, we both employ people. To be able to run a community that exists for free to support people in isolation and loneliness, you are helping and supporting and giving opportunities that are so powerful. One of the ones that I'm so excited about for you as a colleague and producer is BetterHelp. So to be able to access therapy and to be able to access a way to help with some of that isolation and loneliness, but your members are able to be part of the community for free. That is powerful, because I know that you will have investors talking to you all the time who are like, wow, this looks great, we really want to get behind you, but you need to monetize this. And you are monetizing it, but in a different way. So are you comfortable sharing anything about your business strategy or your business model for anyone who might be interested? I think last year, when it was just, I know we don't swear on this podcast, so we'll say it in a nicer way, but it was throw a lot of poo at the wall and see what sticks. Because it was like, oh my God, how are we going to make this sustainable, but not at a cost to the mums? And there has been so many conversations with investors, with bankers, with debt, like guys that own money, that want to give us money. And one of their big caveats is that we put a charge on the parents. And one of the conversations was just even £3 a month, Kayleigh. Like of nearly over, well, at the time I think there was like 15,000 members. Like, there's your sustainability there. And I looked at him and I was like, have we had the same conversation? Have you heard what I've said? Because there'll be that, I said, I know you don't understand, Mr. Millionaire, that you can't comprehend that somebody can't afford £3, but there'll be that one mum who physically cannot. It'll be the bread and the milk on the table, or the cereal for breakfast, or whatever it is, or this walk. Every time
Mum will put baby before herself.
Of course.
And therefore, she's alone again. So she's not allowed to access the community because she can't put herself there. And you know the guilt and the shame that would come with that I can't afford £3 a month. Absolutely not. So from day one, that model has always stayed with me. So we've got the model right now. This year has been a complete game changer. And the authenticity of the model is the thing that propels us in the room, really. So we do corporate and commercial deals with brands that want to either support us in a community responsibility package, social responsibility package, or a brand partnership that wants to market to our community. So the other thing to mention is that each brand needs to align with us, because I've been offered tons of money at the start, in the start of 2024, to work with a brand that my husband was like, do it now. But I said no, because me partnering with them would have broke any trust or loyalty that we have in our community. And the mums and parents need to know that when we work with a brand, it's because they're a great brand or we're getting something from them, some great discounts. Like, that has to align with us. And I'm really proud of that. And we've nailed it. But I think in the commercial world, they're like, what do you mean? What? Because it's just not done. And it's because I've found that most products that are sold to us as parents are latching on to our insecurities as parents. The one that always jumps out is, we spoke about it on our podcast, there was this woman who does a multi-millionaire fitness campaign that works with mums, but she's like shaming your belly, the mum tum, do you want to be
stripes?
You want to be sexy? And I'm like, I am sexy. Why are you saying that I have to be a stick thin muscle man to say that I'm not sexy? But the amount of women that would go, oh my God, I'm not. Like,
but this is the thing, just bringing a baby into the world, the effort and the pain and the experience of doing that is so sexy. It's like the transformation you go through. I do think people don't warn you about postpartum, about the reality of wearing like disposable knickers and just all the stuff that comes with how you feel afterwards, and the matrescence journey, which is that first 5 years as you change your identity. I found it really challenging, actually, from being able to work 7 days a week and being very career orientated always, to, all of a sudden I've got this tiny human clinging to me and I don't know what to do with myself, because I've got all this creative energy I want to do for my business, but I can't. And I think that is that whole identity shift and that journey is quite challenging. So having a community and people to talk to is really powerful. So, thinking about funding for women, I recall a project recently that I worked with a colleague on, and she was doing coaching for women in business in Durham. And what was fascinating was, in the research that we did, there'd been 200 businesses that had been set up in a year, and only 2% were women in Durham. So the funding that she was working with was specifically for certain postcodes in Durham. But I think it's really powerful to see you are in Durham, is that correct? Yeah. As a woman in Durham, upskilling, learning, transferring your knowledge from creative industries, and then with a vision and a mission to then pass that on later on down the line. How have you found it as a female founder in Durham?
Hard, because there's not much funding. Sunderland's got a lot, because I don't know why, but there's just so much funding in Sunderland at the minute, to the point where I was like, should we move offices? That's so interesting about the 2% though, because it just shows the discrepancy in mental load in the household. Because then there'll be dads as well, some of them, don't know how many, but how much are you doing in the house to be able to not have the opportunity to start something yourselves? And it's that the thing of there'll be so many ideas out there by incredible women that just don't have the time to do something not traditional. Because traditionally, we have kids, we stay at home, or we have kids, we go back to work, but on a part-time basis. There's no incentivization to return to work for a mother, because like I'd said earlier, my teacher's wage it paid for nursery. I didn't come out with anything else. So what was the point of me going to work for somebody else to bring up my kids, for me to have no money at the end of it?
And then also, when you're only paying for nursery, which is a lot, by the way, it's amazing if you can do that as a mum. But then you're thinking, well, I didn't get a shop in, or I haven't been able to buy nappies, or, there's so much that comes into that. But also, I think you're right. We talk about this a lot in terms of that work-life balance. You'll often say, I'm struggling to sleep because I'm working on my laptop
We were
late at
talking
night.
about it last night.
But the other thing I I'm sure you were
2.5 hours.
It was an emotional podcast, so I'm not surprised. But I think if you are, if you're working as well to be a business owner, you've got to hustle, you've got to go to the networking events, do the podcast appearances, be at the events, enter the awards, and all of that is often in the nighttime. It's the morning coffee breakfast when you've got to take the kids to school. There's a lot that isn't set up really for women. And then there's also that confidence piece around, well, is my idea good enough, So in your community of Mama Social, do you find you have many self-employed moms?
Quite a few. What I've noticed when I used to lead the walks was it turned into its own little networking event anyway. So I know that some people had their bathrooms fitted by other people, painters, joiners. Like in that community, it'd be like, does anybody know anybody who can fit blinds? Well, one of the girls' husband was a blind fitter, so it was like a networking event in itself. But I think the transition from single woman to mother has such a strange and profound effect on your own identity that a lot of people on maternity leave go, I'm going to start a side hustle. I'm going to feel like I'm doing something that's just for me. And it's sometimes they're so off the wall mad.
And it might be the thing that lights them up, or becomes a real. I mean, you see the TikTok mama. How many mums who are starting their own blog or Instagram channel, doing a couple of reels, all of a sudden can leave their work to do that.
Yeah. One of my friends we used to do a knit and natter class where I want to learn how to do cardies. This was before it was a proper business. So we rented out a little sensory room in a play cafe. We had a couple of mums who knew how to knit, and we just learned how to knit. One of the mums from there then started doing, people would crochet and do all sorts, anything with wool. She then started a side hustle, embroidering names on the backs of like jackets and jumpers.
Gosh. Does Lauren's little one have one of those?
Yeah.
Oh, that is gorgeous. I have seen that before.
And she's gone back to work now, but she's like, that's my little pot of money. And if she wanted to, she could make that like a fully fledged business and leave work. Our fingers would be knacking like, but it's the confidence too, or the ability to. Like I was lucky enough that my husband's a business owner and he could support us as a family, because without him, Mama Social wouldn't be a thing. Without his support going, I believe in anything that you put your hand to, crack on. He's the reason that I was able to take the leap. And a lot of people are like, are you not scared about doing that? Are you not scared? And I'm like, why would I be scared about any of it? I get one life in this form. Who cares if we go bankrupt or something happens? Like, it's one life.
You're so right, though. Having a supportive partner makes all the difference. I'm so grateful for PK, Paul King, my husband, because without him, there wouldn't be a Flamingo Heights. He is so supportive, and he taught himself how to podcast so that he could run my business in the first 3 months of Autumn's life. He is amazing. So definitely there is a privilege, I think, in saying, wow, to have a partner who's behind you is something. I do think that people would be really surprised to see how brave you are with some of the investor deals or the brand deals that come to you. Again, watching you from the outside in or as a colleague, sometimes I'm just so in awe of your courage in really sticking to your guns and your values. And I think you do lead. You have such a mission with Mama Social. I wish people could see how clear you are yourself on where you want to be. And it's out there. Like, you're going places, you know, and you're not hanging around for any of that to happen. How does it feel feeling so lit up for your purpose? What does that feel like when you get up in the morning?
Good.
Yeah.
Like, full stop. Proud, full stop. And to show my kids that work should be something that you are lit up for and you're proud of, and I'm excited to see. But you know what? Not to see, because I've already seen it. Like, I'm into vision boards, I'm into journaling. Like, this has been my jam forever. I'm pretty woo-woo. Like, I know what this is going to look like in a year, and I just want everybody to be along for the ride. Like, there's enough to go around for everybody to build each other up. I think the only thing that we have is our morals. Everything else you can give away, my reputation and my morals are the most important thing. There was a moment where we were trying to get this deal done at the end of last year, and I got told on the very last moment that I couldn't tell the person that we were doing the deal with that this person was involved, or just on the outskirts. And I was like, why? And they were like, because the deal will fall through because they don't get on. And I was like, oh, well, no, the deal can't get done then. Because if I can't be completely transparent to my detriment, because we lost that deal, but I was like, but then that's up to them. I can sleep at night because I haven't done somebody over. Or I think in business, it's that misconception. It's not a misconception because it happens all of the time, that you've got to be ruthless and just gung-ho, and you can. But my mama, my grandma, who was super close, basically brought us up, was her favourite saying was, you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And she was not a woman to mess with. Like, she wasn't a pushover. But I model myself on her of be nice at the correct times, be really proactive of what you want, and things will happen. But all of the time, stick to what your gut is telling you. And I'm so amazed with how I'm connected so well with me gut that, like, it transforms even some deals or some conversations. I'm like, you're giving me a bad vibe. And there's always something comes out at the end where I'm like, that was the vibe. But yeah, it's hard to keep your identity strong in a world where everybody wants you to change for their own purpose. Like, we can monetize it out of this if we take advantage of X. And I'm like, no.
That doesn't help my parents. That doesn't help the people who are stuck at home feeling isolated and lonely. Yeah. I love that. I love that you're so connected to your vision and your mission. So on your podcast, but also in your business, you know, seeing you and witnessing you, leading your team, getting emails, you know, hearing about the developments of the week. Kayleigh is a real visionary leader. I love that. So yeah, you see things and you take people on the journey, and you are modeling things in a way that I love, where you're saying, I'm opening the door, come along, come on in, you know, and it's beautiful. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is something that I've struggled with myself. So as you have grown in your podcast, as your podcast grows, as your community grows, how has it affected you and your friendships and the way you interacting with people? Have you noticed anything different as your profile grows?
One of my best friends, who is often a guest when we just ring her for knowledge on the podcast, she texted me last week saying, are you dead? I was like, no, I'm not. I'm just busy. It sounds awful, but I only have enough time in the day for certain things. And in this very moment, friends and family that aren't my 2 children and my husband have to be put on the back burner to be able to push forward, because there's only so much I can do. But I want quality, not quantity. So there'll be moments where my best friends, we'd just be texting all the time. There'll be like loads of gifts going back and forward, loads of reels. I don't have time for that. And my friends are the ones that are like, hello, we need some time with you. But unfortunately, I don't have the time. But when I do, it's like really connected, and that'll fill my social tank up for a good while. But I think if they were here now, they'd be like, we miss Kayleigh. Where is Kayleigh?
You're connected to a higher cause, an impact and a purpose, and you are fueled. Your soul is lit up. Yeah.
I'm like on this journey of transformation personally, but also professionally. Yeah, it's just super exciting. But what I'm noticing, I don't know if to share this. Shall I share it?
Go on, share your shiz.
If nobody listens to our podcast, that's one of our segments, but it's not shiz.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm noticing this year from last year, when I was this new little hoverfly in the business world, where everybody was like, oh, she's shiny and new. Who's that? Who's that? This year, there's 2 types of camps. People are like, oh my God, can I have some time with you to work out, and can you help me with some brainstorming on this idea? And I'm like, I'm not qualified for this.
They can pay you.
They can pay me, yes, but I don't have time for that. The other thing is, this year, mentors and investors are coming round, and they're like, it's a different conversation to last year, where I'm like, please help me, like somebody, anybody, where it's nice to feel like you're the one in the room that people are wanting to speak to. Not that it's me, it's because the mission is so strong, and they want to align themselves or their brands or their business to something that's making real change, which is incredible. But on the other side is something that I've always dealt with. So before I was a teacher, I was a performer, lived in London, drama school, some UK tours, fantastic. Came home, started my teaching job. But even before musical theatre, I was a little dancer. And I've never had issues with men. I think because I'm quite direct when I talk, that I come off quite masculine energy sometimes, but then I'm quite feminine as well. It's strange. Anyway, I've always had issue with women having real issues with me. And I don't know if I'm holding a mirror up to them and showing them like their flaws, as why everybody has the same 24 hours in the day, but how do you prioritize what you need to do? Or is it that I'm unapologetically me and that rubs people up the wrong way? Men enjoy that strength and power. Women, for me, this is just for me, are always giving me attitude or a certain vibe. Not everyone, of course not. There's some incredible business leaders and mentors who inspire me and have done amazing for me last year and this year. I'm getting to that place with business now where people, there's like them 2 camps. And I'll tell you a little tale, a little story.
I love a tale.
Story time.
Especially a Kayleigh tale.
This happened last week in a workshop-y type meeting where there was about 20 of us in a room. And it was just a mastermind. And there was about 6 or 7 of us talking. So the person who was leading it would ask a question, and the same 6 or 7 of us would speak. Everybody else, you get them in the room, don't you, where they're just like, I'll just take it in, I'll make notes. Whereas I feel comfortable to talk, and clearly the other 6 or 7 people did. There was a moment when one of the women in the workshop said loud enough so I could hear, here we go again. And I stopped, and this is where the directness comes from. So I'm not afraid to have confrontation. She was trying to intimidate me, and I stopped, and I looked directly at her, and everybody, it was like the whole atmosphere just got sucked out. And I went, sorry? And she started like laughing, and everybody on her corner of the table started like awkwardly laughing. I was like, I'd like to just finish off what I was saying before you said what you said. And she was like, didn't say anything. And I was like, it's women like you that really boil me the wrong way. Because why are you trying to dampen my zest?
Yes.
Why are you not building me up? I couldn't care if you spoke 20 times in that meeting. You say your piece and you share it. Don't. And it wasn't, people might be thinking, well, how many times did you talk? And it shouldn't matter how much investment you want to be in a mastermind. Like, honestly, it was a moment that really annoyed me because these things happen all of the time with women for me. And I really want to change the narrative of building each other up. And if you feel a certain way about somebody, doesn't matter. Let her crack on. But I was annoyed when I left because I didn't speak for the rest of the workshop. And I was like, I kept writing notes. Like just getting me frustration out. And I didn't speak. And when I left, I was like, I allowed her to take control of my day. But then I was irritated with the leader who was leading the mastermind because I was like, why didn't you address that and just be like, oh, like if when I was teaching, I would have been like, oh, everybody can say their piece.
Yeah. And
it would have just been like, she was in control. But what was funny, when I went to the toilet at the end, she followed us in.
Did she apologise?
No, mate. She just went, I know you. And I had seen her at some networking events and I was like, all right. She was like, we were at, I'll not mention the awards, and you won the award. And I was like, bingo. We were in the same category.
So a jealousy thing, maybe.
That's all I can equate things to, is I'm doing something that is irritating. People are probably thinking, oh, who the hell is this egotistical maniac? But it's not. It's an observation that I have lived with my entire life. My mum took us out of it. We actually got kicked out of the dance school when I was younger because this woman had a vendetta against this 10-year-old little girl. My mum ended up hitting her. But she said it was one of the proudest moments of her life. But because of that, and then I've had it in drama school, I've had it in auditioning, because you're up against the same people. But you know what, one I've never said this out loud, on my vision board, in the next 5 years, I want to create a platform that supports women founders. And I know there's other platforms out there like that, but I want to invest in them and mentor and help. So that's why I'm working with incredible business owners to learn so much that I can then pass on and build up. A little part of us thinks that she potentially didn't want to say that out loud, but you just have brain farts where your brain does something and you go, oh God, was that out loud? I'm trying to justify your bad behaviour, but it's really interesting to me.
But it wasn't about you, it was about her. And that's something that helps me so much. And I've learned in therapy, people's behavior is about them, not you. And we're all doing the best that we can with the resources we have at the time. Now, that has helped me put so much in my head in past activities or even things I've done wrong to forgive myself for things, because we all do the best we can with the resources we can at the time. I have experienced what you're talking about there, and I think this is why I have Flamingo Heights. I feel that sometimes we as women, and you know, men experience this as well, but a lot of people who are neurodiverse or who are maybe don't subscribe to a gender or who are kept apart in some way, I think that often we can feel like we're too much or we just don't fit in. We feel excluded.
Is a perfect way to say it.
I have always felt like too much. Myself in ballet, drama, you know, singing, I was always the one on the stage and I loved it. But actually for me, it was covering, like in my personal life, I was always masking. So the stage was my safe place because that's where I could be free. But I think what I would say is that I've experienced that feeling of dulling your light. I'm trying to be as small as possible and you just can't. And I think it is interesting that when you meet people and they say certain things, what you said earlier was about a mirror. I think you can trigger people and stuff can come up for them. And I think also for anyone listening, if you're listening and you think, well, who's this? Or what are they talking about? Or even if you're watching on your own social media and someone's really bothering you, why are they bothering you? What is coming up for you that feels so uncomfortable? And it could be that someone's got a money block or a confidence block, or they don't like the way they look. And so they're seeing someone and they get so many feelings. If there's something that feels strong for you, for anyone listening and watching, there's a gift there for you to learn about. One of my favorite leaders is actually Michelle Obama, and I love something she said. So she said that what you said earlier about friendships, she's got girls and guys that she goes way back, like from when she was in nursery school. But she also says, like, being the president's wife, she didn't have time for friendships. And sometimes you've got to leave people behind, and you've got to give people the chance to invite them on your journey and invite them on your mission. And maybe it's not for them. You can have friendships at different times, different reasons and seasons. I think for you right now, Kayleigh, you're in such a developmental phase of growth. And I am so excited to see the exponential growth that is going to happen for you over the next year. 6 months. I've already seen, and witnessed, and it's so powerful to witness. But this whole idea of ruffling feathers is something we like to do here. You walk in a room and you have a star quality, you have a presence, but you couldn't do what you do. You couldn't build the community that Mama Social needs without that. So if you were to be less or to make yourself smaller, you're not going to go and win and negotiate brand partnerships and deals to keep things free. You're not going to get the support that you need. So actually, without that, you're not going to be able to do the job that you want to do, well, to lead the way you want to lead. And I also love that you're talking about wanting to give back later, but about immersing yourself and being a sponge now to get all that learning now.
And I know we've alluded to it, but I like to call, because it's me, but I've got special needs, and I know the language, we've had the conversation many times, the language has changed, but I can't even say neurodivergent. Like being diagnosed as a child, I'm okay with that language. It's my language. So I will just say special needs for anybody who is offended. Don't. It's me. But being able to see things differently and be hyper-focused on something, or to be aware of an atmosphere in a room or colours changing, or my pick a mix of special needs are dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, and I've got this little superpower called visual snow syndrome. It's basically patterns move. There's always a heat haze over things, so that carpet and this carpet and your pattern on your dress,
I'm sure that's moving. Yeah.
Everything's moving, and I know when I'm overwhelmed or stressed or hungover, it gets worse. So I know that my body, my brain goes, take a step back, and unfortunately the friends are the ones that I have to step away from, not because they're bringing anything to me, but just how do I compartmentalize the stuff I've got to do. But my friends, there is just a handful left now and it's not that I've had a big fallout with the big group of friends. Like, we'll still go out, once in a while as a big group, but there'll be the diehards that will come along with me. But it doesn't matter if I have not spoken to them for weeks and weeks. It still feels like the same when you're back together. But yeah, having the superpowers, and I like to call them superpowers because my son's on the referral pathway, and he's definitely full of ADHD. Like, I don't want him to ever think that it means less. For me, it's power. For me, it's being able to understand something differently or see something differently that somebody else is not able to. So I'm really proud to be a part of Spicy Brain Land.
I'm with you there. I love it. It's taken its toll on my self-esteem at times, trying to see the world in the way that other people do. I think my spicy brain is probably, it's ADHD, and I actually think dyscalculia. So for me, that is around maps, directions, time.
Oh my God, yes, you with maps.
I know, I got lost
Tell the story.
on the way to the podcast show. I do wonder if part of that was being a new mum and just like having baby brain.
Yeah.
But I got lost for 3 hours in London trying to find the podcast show just because I was too scared to get the tube and I didn't understand how to read the map. I was like, I'll be there in a minute. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Oh no, 3 hours later, I'm still wondering. You guys had to actually escort me to the train station.
I was like, are you okay?
Oh man. But yeah, it's really shown up for me in my life in lots of ways. And I think one of the things I'm proud of actually for both of us is how we are offering opportunities to people who maybe don't have the same brains as us or who have different brains to get ahead, to get experience. And I know that in your community, there will be lots of people who don't meet the usual status quo, and that's beautiful. So I have a question for you. You were on the stage, you were stunning people with your gorgeous voice, which if you want to hear, you should check out their social media because there's been some brilliant reels. But how did you make the transition from the creative industry into business? Because I think often there's this idea that creatives haven't got anything to offer to business, and it's all about tech and it's all about Silicon Valley.
There is
money.
so much money in tech at the minute. Like,
there is.
Nobody's wanting to invest in any other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, get some other funding pots. Come on.
I have to say I'm very grateful that Creative England and Create UK are doing a lot to support creatives in the northeast of England, because I am fortunate to be on one of their programs at the moment, so need to hook you up with those details. But what transferable skills have you seen come through from your performance career to being in business?
I think the big thing is the confidence side in general. When I was program leader at Newcastle College, one of the biggest things was like 3% of them students will do the thing that they want to do, which is stand on stage and be paid. 3% of them will do that. But what I kept saying in the room was, there is so much you're learning to even go in a boardroom, to be able to stand up and to present and to feel confident in your own body. I think it's so transferable, and to know your weaknesses or flaws and to be able to lean into that is something that's really empowering. I think with my business, I didn't sit with a business plan and think, what is the UTR? No, that's a self-employment.
Unique selling point.
Yes.
USP.
I didn't try and do it in that traditional manner. It just organically, holistically grew into something that demanded my time. What was strange was I've wrote a lot about this in my journal, about did I choose performance or was I led there? Because school was difficult academically, and there was moments where I wanted to choose, and because I was just naturally gifted at performing, that it made sense as my parents were like, but you know, you're going to get really high grades in dance, and I was captain of the athletics team, so in PE, so do choose them. Why would you want to do history and geography? And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Then when it was go to college, I might want to do A-levels. Well, why? You're going to get outstanding grades. Like, just because you're naturally good at something doesn't mean that should be the only thing for you, because I just went on to uni, drama school, where like there was no other path that I ever thought was available. Then when this happened, I did have a moment of like, I miss dancing. I miss singing. Like, I miss being in the room where somebody is so connected to themselves and they're lighting up from the inside out, and you're witnessing this incredible moment on stage. That could be singing, it could be dancing. I miss them moments to think differently and go, right, let's stage this in this way. They're the parts that I miss. But what I'm finding is business is creative as well, to look at the problems and to be able to try and figure out how to fix the problem. You do have to be creative, and you do have to think on the spot, and the brand deals and the content and the podcast, like that gives me my outlet of like, how do we continue on this trajectory, but in a way that is different to others that are out there, because there's lots of platforms, lots of online communities, but what we're doing is really simple but effective. And
what you're doing is bringing yourself to the table. So your unique selling point is you,
yeah,
Kayleigh. it's all of those bits that you've done. It's the being on the stage, it's the choreography, it's the reels you can create with silly hats we found in the studio storage room. It's all those things. So I'm conscious of time. You've got to get to meetings, girl. So one of the things I would love to ask you, which I ask everyone, is what is your number one word to nurture your zest? So what is that thing that helps you to light you up, get you out of bed in the morning, and just help you feel connected to yourself and your vision?
It's such a big question, but I think there's two. One's selfless and selfish.
Okay, so I guess you're selfless in that you're connected to your vision and you're wanting to help people, and there's that. But the selfish is the strength and boundaries and the no texting and that sort of thing.
I think one of the things for motherhood is we're expected to be selfless at all times. But selflessness can be really detrimental to our own growth and mental health. So for me, selflessness is quite damaging. It's not probably what people were thinking, but like I want to change selfishness to this positive, put yourself first. If mother is happy, healthy, sustained at the top of that household, then it filters down to everybody. So let's change the negative connotation of selfishness for the positive of being selfless.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even space.
Self-care. Just as something like on a Saturday, my husband knows, like we've done so much therapy.
I love that you talk about this so openly as well. It's amazing.
Like he's done it, I've done it, we've done it together because we know we want to be together. But one of the things that we both need is time apart. So from everybody. So on a Saturday morning, I go for a walk along the beach. I grab my own breakfast in a lovely restaurant. And then I go home and I'm ready for the day. I'm back by like 10:30. And he's had time with the kids and I've had my own time to feel like I've done something for myself. And I think we should be allowed to put ourselves first in that selfish. Because my mum would be like, oh my God, no way. Like, and have a conversation, like have a boomer parenting opinion on it. But yeah, I think be selfish at no detriment to anybody else's growth.
Yeah, I love that. I'm hearing be selfish, but what I'm hearing is take space. Take space for you. Take space to be, and also have the space to follow your dreams and to act on them. I'm so proud of you. I love your mission. I love your vision, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Nurture Your Zest today. If you're feeling extra kind, it would mean so much to me if you could share this episode with your friends or family or anyone who you think might feel inspired by this content. Liking, sharing, or interacting with our content is a great way to support us as content creators, and it helps us to bring interesting stories and more people to you. This podcast is a Flamingo Heights podcast studio production, and I've been your host, Ashleigh King. If you liked today's episode, follow the video on your screen now, or check out the link in your show notes to find similar content.